Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video talking to you about this gun that I have here, which is the Rex-01 Tactical Compact. Now if you've been following my channel, you've probably seen the other 3 videos I've done on AREX pistols. The first one was the original Compact, then the Standard, then the full-size Tactical, and now the Compact Tactical. So I've got quite a bit of time behind these Rex pistols. But nonetheless, this is a new model with some really nice features, which we'll be going over later in the video. And hopefully I'll be able to bring you some more insightful information and some more interesting information in case you have seen those other videos to keep you at least somewhat interested in this one. So with that being said, I've been talking long enough, so let's go ahead and see this thing in action a little bit, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth into this pistol. So what I want to go ahead and do is, instead of just listing off a bunch of numbers, I'm just going to put them over here on the side of the screen so you can pause it, read it if you want. Honestly, most of this information is stuff you can get from the product pages for this pistol, but just some of the high points that are worth mentioning. But outside of those, some of the important things to mention is, first of all, being a tactical model, like the full-size tactical, it comes factory with a threaded barrel. It also has a thread protector. It is half by 28 threads, so most of your 9mm cans are going to be ready for this. It's not some crazy left-hand European thread pitch. It's the standard thread pitch that we're used to over here in the States. We have suppressor height sights, which not only allow you to use a suppressor, but allow you to use the built-in optic mounting system to be able to co-witness while you have a red dot mounted to your pistol. Now, if you don't have a red dot, it does come with just a flat panel, so you can have it in there and fill up that gap. But it also comes with, I think, 4 different floor plates that allow you to mount pretty much all of the popular red dots on the market currently. Specifically here, I have a Vortex Venom. Just FYI, full disclosure, I did not pay for this Venom. It was sent to me for testing by Vortex at no cost. And while I'm talking full disclosure, I did not pay for this Rex-01. This is a T&E gun sent to me from Fime Group, the company that imports these into the United States. So, I appreciate them being willing to send these out, and then I'll be sending it back once I'm done. So other than the features, like, again, the threaded barrel, suppressor sights being cut for the red dot, this is going to be very, very similar to the regular compact model that AREX has already been making, which I think is a really good thing. I mean, honestly, this thing has a lot of features already, which is why I've said in the past that if I were to buy a double action, single action gun, it would be a AREX Rex-01. And now specifically, after feeling all 4 of the Rex-01 models, I think that this would be the one I would choose, and hopefully in this video I'll be able to articulate exactly why that is. Now, it's worth mentioning, I did run into an issue here and there with this thing, which to date I have between 800 and 900 rounds through it. With the rounds we're going to be putting it through today, we should bring that number all the way up to the big 1,000, which is what people always like to see. But I've had a couple bobbles here and there. Most of which I'm going to be talking about, are going to be user-induced, which I learned kind of the hard way throughout the testing of it. And then one in particular was a magazine-related issue that I've had. But other than that, outside of the user-induced malfunctions, this thing has been running just as well and just as reliably as the other AREX Rex-01 pistols I've reviewed. So since this thing has the capacity to mount a red dot to it, let's go ahead and do some shooting with this red dot and do some quick accuracy groups at about 5 to 7 yards. I'll figure it out once I set the target up, and then we'll see what kind of accuracy I can squeeze out of this thing with this red dot mounted to it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do the accuracy test now. As you can see, I have a camera right here, which is set up on the target. It's at 7 yards, 21 feet. You got to shoot it standing, just so we can get a rough idea of what you can expect accuracy-wise. I'm going to actually double check that I'm recording, because I just did this But I didn't have that recording, so we're doing it again. I'll call it a warm-up. But okay, we're recording. Good stuff. So we'll again start out with 5 rounds of PMC bronze, and let's see what we can do. Even though it's a warm-up, my hands are still really cold for what that's worth. Oof. Other than 2 of those shots, that was pretty good. You're going to see me tightening down this thread protector between each group. That's because I keep noticing that it comes loose during shooting. And I've never had it come all the way off or anything crazy like that. However, it does work itself loose every single time, no matter how hard I hand tighten it. One thing you can do to prevent that, if you're not shooting suppressed, is as I've done on my carry gun, you just take like a little O-ring, slide it over the top, and that allows you to kind of torque it against that and it won't go anywhere. But if you're going to shoot suppressed, you want to definitely make sure you take that off so that it can properly index on your barrel. So that's it. Let's go ahead and do another 5-round group of the PMC bronze. All right. Other than that first shot, those are all touching, which something I've noticed with PMC bronze for whatever reason. I'm not sure what it is. Next up is this 115 grain remanufactured ammo, range time training ammo, whatever that means. It's worth noting all the ammo I'm shooting right now is all 115 grain full metal jacket. Let's do top left. Pretty quick with that. User-induced malfunction, but I'll go into that later. Slide didn't lock back, but I know that's my fault. But again, we'll discuss that momentarily. This ammo doesn't shoot very well. Hey there. Last up is Freedom Munitions. See how this shoots? For this, I'm going to aim at the top corner of that center diamond. Had a terrible pull on one of those. Do another group of that. Try it with the thread protector off. See if I still pull a shot low on the first round. Interesting. I'm wondering now if that thread protector being tight is dropping that first round low for whatever unknown reason. Because as soon as I took it off, I think that's the best group I've shot so far. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the results we just got. First up, down here, we were shooting that PMC bronze, and hopefully you will see this. It's okay. 3 shots touching, 2 of them, pretty far off to the left side there. Now, one thing you'll notice is every single round, or every single group, the first shot is considerably far away from the rest of the shots in the group. Well demonstrated here with the second group, we have, 4 rounds touching, but then the first shot is low. Then we went up here to the range time, cheap remanufactured stuff, and just didn't shoot great. And then went to the PMC bronze, which I knew shot better out of this gun than this did, but my first round was low and to the right, which is weird for a righty if it's a twitch or anything like that. And then the other 4, reasonably tight. And then I decided, you know what, all my first shots are off. All my first shots are with the muzzle device or the thread protector tightened. Let's go and just take it off and see if that makes a difference. And then we shot the best 5-shot group so far, and that's easily under an inch. Again, 7 yards, but standing, unsupported, all that. So take that for what you will. Those tighter groups are pretty well what I've experienced before. This was a target I shot 2 days ago. You'll notice again a lot of those low first shots, but still some pretty nice tight groups out of that PMC bronze. So again, take that for what it is. I've shot it pretty well, especially with this red dot. It makes impacting from like 25 yards really not that big of a deal. I have a steel target at 100 yards. Let's go ahead and take some couple shots with that, because why not, right? So I have 13 rounds of the PMC bronze left, so we'll just shoot 13 rounds at it. Again, I have this camera zoomed in at the steel silhouette that I have at 100 yards. It's about a 3/4 size silhouette for what that's worth. And I took the thread protector off, so hopefully I give myself as few excuses as possible for why I'm about to miss 13 shots. But let's go ahead and see how I do. Alright, well, I got a couple hits, and a lot of those misses seemed pretty close. Might be hard to tell with the way the parallax is from that angle, but most of those were a little bit left of the target, which is definitely my fault. So let's go ahead and talk about those user-induced malfunctions that you saw a couple of with the range time ammo. Basically what's happening is my thumb on my support hand is just making enough contact under recoil for it to prevent the slide from locking open. Now, this is the first time I've really experienced that with any of the AREX pistols. However, it's been a long time since I've tested one, and in that time I've tried to sort of refine my grip to help with recoil mitigation, which on my Glock hasn't been an issue. However, it seems that it's just, again, making enough contact under recoil for it to make a difference. Now, the reason I say under recoil is because when I establish my grip, I am not making contact with it. And if you were to ask me, I would say it's not happening, it's not my fault, something else is going on that's preventing the slide from locking open. However, crazy things happen under recoil. Things that aren't touching certain places touch under recoil. So the way I know that I've diagnosed that is every single time where I've made a concerted effort to hold the gun differently, it still locks open. Anytime I've shot it single-handed with my dominant hand, it still locks open. So that tells me is there's something about that support hand that's getting in the way. Now, as you saw earlier, most of the times it's still locked open, no problem. But there were those couple times where it didn't happen. Again, 100% user-induced, my fault. But again, that's an issue worth mentioning. So So let's go ahead and talk about what you're going to get when you order one of these AREX pistols. First of all, you get this nice lockable hard case, which the way it allows you to lock it, it should be TSA approved, because you can lock it on both ends, which prevents you from being able to open at all in its locked configuration. Now, don't quote me on that. TSA can be the TSA, so they can change their minds, but it should be okay for that, which is nice, so you don't have to go out and buy an extra container if you want to take this with you when you're traveling or anything like that, obviously within the country. You have cutouts here for 2 magazines, and there's enough room here where you can have a magazine in the gun as well for a total of 3 magazines. And the way it's cut, you can have the actual 17 round mag that it comes with flush fit in there as well. So it does come with a 15 round flush fit magazine and a 17 round magazine with a little spacer, so that it still fills up your grip entirely. You're not going to pinch yourself or anything crazy like that. So that's pretty nice. It also comes here with all the hardware and tools required to change out the different sight mounts. Again, it comes with the just regular filler one in from the factory, but it has all the fasteners and all the plates to be able to do that, including the little hex wrenches, which comes in handy as well. If, as with what happened with me, at some point the thread's starting to loosen early on in the shooting, you can then, as long as you have your pistol case with you, you can go back in and tighten everything down properly. One thing you might be able to notice, and if not, I'll take a close-up picture, even though this thing is cut for a red dot, the foam is not cut out for you to be able to mount a red dot to it. So I've had to kind of crush the foam up here in order to get this mounted with the red dot in there. Now, it still fits, but that's just one of those like little super nitty-gritty details that I noticed. Something worth mentioning. Now, it comes with the lock as required by US law, comes with some more safety information, and as with the other Rex pistols, comes with what I feel is one of the best, if not the best, user manuals that I've come across with any handgun, especially for an imported handgun. A lot of those imported handguns, it's clearly someone whose English is not their first language writing those. Here you have full color pictures and diagrams and lots of really good useful information, as well as I throw everything off here, a firearm service record. So if you're like the kind of person who likes to keep track of rounds fired, malfunctions, or anything like that, you have it built into the user manual here if you want to use it. Now, one significant thing that I noticed that this is lacking is the instructions for mounting your optics. Now, unless there's another manual in here that I missed, which I don't see any. Oh, there's also some stickers in there, which is, I know, good for a lot of people. If you're like me and you've never mounted a red dot to a pistol before, I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't more instructions on which hardware goes with which optic and plate. It took me a little bit of musical fasteners to be able to figure out what goes where. I did get it mounted, but it would have been nice if there was even just a little info sheet saying, hey, if you have an Aimpoint RMR, Trijicon RMR, here's the exact fasteners you're going to need, and then, be able to mount it in there. Now, the fasteners all come with some thread locker on there, so all you got to do is tighten them down. You don't have to worry about that. But again, it would have been nice if there was at least a little diagram or something saying which fasteners go with which optics. Now, that can be difficult for them to predict because there's always new ones coming out and the hardware might be a little bit different. But even then, it would have been nice. Just throwing that out there. Now, for those of you who haven't seen my other AREX Rex 01 reviews, first of all, I would kindly request that you do that. But I'm going to go ahead and just run down the general features of these pistols. I already went over what makes this different from the other models, but let's go ahead and just get into the actual bare bones features of these Rex 01 pistols. So first off, let's go ahead and start with the slide. You do have front slide serrations up here, which is really nice. A lot of this is going to be very reminiscent of the SIG 226 or 229 series, which I'll touch on later. But you do have the factory included front slide serrations up here, which is really nice. Other than that, we already covered the suppressor height sights and the red dot mounting option. Down here, you do have an accessory rail. So if you have a red dot, or excuse me, not a red dot, a light or a laser or something else you want to mount to a rail, you have space to do that here. It's a regular 1913 style rail, so make sure you order your accessories accordingly with that. Moving down here to the frame, back here you might notice that there is an ambidextrous safety So on left side or the right side, very 1911-esque. It's in a very similar position, which is nice if you're gonna have a frame-mounted safety such as this one. That's the place I prefer to have it because it's a very natural place as you draw for you to sweep off as you get your natural shooting grip. So again, I'm not necessarily a big fan of safeties, at least on striker fired guns. This one is an exception, and I'll get into that. But because of that safety being where it is, it's a very natural process to sweep that off. So as you present to your target, your gun's actually going to fire when you pull the trigger, which is really nice. Now, moving forward up here, I'm going to have to roll in a picture so you guys can see because I need to keep this pointed in a safe direction. We have a dual-purpose lever, which acts as both a decocker, as you can see there, and also your slide release, or slide lock. So, again, pushing down on this side, you can see that it drops the slide. Now, the important thing to note is when you drop the slide, it does not drop the hammer. It is going to be two separate motions, which I think is really good because the thing I don't like about double action, single action guns is that double action trigger pull. So if I'm doing a reload and I drop the slide, I don't want to now have to deal with a really long, heavy trigger pull. I like being able to go straight back into that single action trigger pull, which is really nice. Now, the thing that I said, the reason I like the safety on this one, as with the other Rex pistols, because I don't like that double action trigger pull, by being able to have a safety on, I can now safely carry this cocked and locked, unlike, you know, a Beretta 92, SIG 226. None of those allow you to safely carry with that hammer back. So now I can have the safety on, again, very 1911-esque, as I draw out, be able to present that gun, and now I have that nice, crisp, single action trigger pull with this pistol. Now moving on down, we have your magazine release, which is always ambi. It's not one that you have to swap it back and forth, so I'll go ahead and push it here on the left side of the gun. You can see it drop free, and then I'll go ahead and do it on the right side of the gun, and it drops free. So it's not something you have to swap back and forth. It's always ambi. It's always going to work both ways, and again, that's a really good thing. Now, early on, with the early models of the Rex pistols, one of the things that I griped about the most was these grips. They have improved them over time to where these ones are good enough that I don't feel like I necessarily have to replace them. But I still think that there's a little bit of room for improvement. So if you were to get one of these, you can get the Hogue grips, which I think make it feel a little bit better and a little bit more grippy. But again, the way that they're making these now is perfectly serviceable in my opinion. Add that in with the texturing on the front and back of the grip. I think it has a perfectly serviceable grip, but if you wanted to make it feel really good, there are some aftermarket options out there to help with that. And then again, this works with the flush fit 15-round magazines for the traditional compact, as well as, I'll pull it out here, the 17-round magazine with the spacer, which drops that grip down really low. So, for those of you Glock 19X fans out there where you like the shorter barrel with the longer grip, if you have those big person strangling hands, this will allow you to get that nice firm grip, so you can go ahead and continue to buy those 17-round magazines and, you know, shoot until the cows come home and be perfectly happy. So I'm going to go ahead and try to wrap up my thoughts here, and first what I want to go ahead and talk about is the other issue I ran into. I said that there was a lot of user-induced malfunctions, but then one magazine-related malfunction that I ran into, and as you might be able to see, the spring for the follower should not be sticking at the bottom of the magazine. So what happened was, I was doing some drills with this, just doing some reload drills, you know, shoot rounds in the magazine. Once it locks open, drop the mag, insert a fresh mag, drop the rack the slide, and then keep shooting. And what happened was, as I dropped this magazine out of the gun, I let it free fall from, you know, regular shoulder height, from my workspace height, and it impacted the concrete down here on the floor, and the floor plate actually snapped off and sent the whole thing flying around. That was a pretty big bummer. Now, here's the deal. Again, this is the fourth AREX Rex 01 that I have tested. I have several thousand rounds through all four of them. This is the first time I've ever had an issue like this. And considering the manufacturer of these is Metgar, an OEM manufacturer for a lot of high quality manufacturers, I believe even SIG 226s use Metgar magazines. This is just one of those really random flukes. Now, when I talked to AREX about it, they were super apologetic. and they sent me out a new one, no questions asked. Not that they asked any questions, but I did send them the video so that they could see it for themselves. So again, while it did happen, I'm inclined to chalk this up as a, law of large numbers fluke, where something crazy can happen. I've dropped these other 2 magazines on the ground constantly and have had no issues there. And again, the other 3 that I've tested, I drop magazines all the time and never had an issue. So while I did have this issue, and I want to let you guys know I had this issue, I think it's not necessarily worth worrying about, because again, the company that makes these magazines is a very trustworthy manufacturer, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of people out there. Now, it's actually interesting to note, again, being so similar to the SIG 226, my friend who has a SIG 226 actually was out here with me, and he pulled the floor plate off his SIG 226 mag, and his floor plate actually fit onto this magazine. So we were actually able to get this magazine working again just using a replacement floor plate. But once the replacement came in, I pulled that off, gave it back to him, and now we just have this one. So again, something I thought you guys deserve to know. So other than that, I've just been really, really happy with this pistol. I think of the 4 that I've tested, this is currently my favorite. I like the size of this. The overall lengths of everything is very roughly Glock 19 size. And as you guys know, as I'm carrying right now, I'm a big Glock 19 fan. There are a couple kind of weird things about it that you have to get used to. And the one thing that I would definitely recommend doing is putting the O-ring on the thread protector, because in my experience, it does come loose and can affect accuracy, as we saw. Whether or not it was that was causing my low shots or just me being a terrible shot, you can decide for yourselves, but just something worth noting. Other than that, make sure that your grip is not going to interfere with that slide lock, which is kind of weird because I've said in all the other videos, I like the location of the slide lock on this one so much more than the 226, because on the 226, it never locks open. Just the way I hold that gun, the safety is in the position that the slide lock is on the 226, and my thumb always sits on it. So no matter what I do with a SIG 226, the slide doesn't lock open. So at least this one gives me a 90% chance of having it lock open, which is a really good thing. And for what it's worth, all you got to do is a tap rack and it'll lock open. In that case, at least it always did for me. But again, something worth mentioning to you guys. But other than that, I really think that this is an excellent deal for the gun you're getting. Now, while I have said it's very similar to the 226 or 229 specifically, you can get a version of the SIG 229 that is very, very similar to this. The only main difference is it's going to come with a SIG Romeo red dot, but that's going to cost about $1,300. This one you can find online. I think like Copper Custom has them in stock, and other places have them in stock for like $850. Now, granted, that doesn't come with a red dot, but with the SIG, you're stuck with the SIG red dot, which you may or may not want. With this one, you can put whatever red dot you want on it. If you already have one that you want to put on it, you're good to go. If you want the new, was it aim point? I don't even remember what they call it, but the big tube-looking one, which I think is actually pretty neat. You can put that on there, and again, you're not having to just take one off that came from the factory and set it off to the side. This comes ready for you to mount whatever you want to it. And if you're not a fan of running a red dot, you can just take all the mounts off altogether, put that filler one back in, and then just shoot it well with the suppressor height sights, which I did plenty of with this thing. And again, all the what was it? I think it was the Rugged Obsidian was what we ran this suppressed with, and it ran great. It was an excellent suppressor host, which I should mention, so far I've shot a lot of my hand loads out of this. I've shot PMC Bronze, Fiocchi, Range Time, that Freedom Munitions. I've run a lot of the Fiocchi 158 grains subsonic ammo through this, and it ate all of that without any issues whatsoever. So again, it seems to feed very reliably, and again, works as a great suppressor host if you want to do it. And the Rugged we shot, I think, is technically the 45 version. The suppressor height sights cleared it no problem, so for what that's worth. Now, before I forget, there is one more thing I wanted to mention, issue-wise, that we ran into with this that I just now remembered. My friend Christian, who you may remember from my Gimp to Gunslinger series, because he's missing all of his pinky now. They took all that off and most of his ring finger. We were noticing with him when he was shooting with gloves, two-handed, he was getting limp wrist type malfunctions, where it was kind of failure to feed, stovepipes, that kind of a thing. Now, when he didn't have the gloves on, he's shot it just fine. But it is worth mentioning, with his limited ability to grip the front of the pistol with his firing hand, we did notice some of those limp wrist issues. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, however you want to put it, he did not have that issue when we tested out the previous AREX models, but he also had all 5 fingers on his right hand when that happened before too. Again, something I think you guys deserve to know about, but I think a non-issue for most of us 5-digit people out there, knock on wood. So once again, to summarize, I'm a really, really big fan of these pistols. I think it's an excellent option, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, double action, single action option on the market. If you want a gun that you can use for duty use or anything else, I really think that these things deserve to have a lot more attention than they currently do. I don't know why you don't hear about them everywhere, because I certainly believe that they deserve it. Hopefully, if you guys have a range nearby, you can go and rent one, hopefully. If not, I guess you're kind of going to have to take my word for it, but ideally, run some rounds through one, and I really think you're going to understand what I'm talking about and really come to like these guns. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and throw those in the comment section down below. Try to get back to you as quick as I can. Of course, the rain picks up once again. I really want to give a shout out to my patrons for making videos like this one possible. I can't afford to reload ammo without their support. I can't afford to go out and buy ammo without their support. So the stuff they do really does make a difference. So if you're interested in contributing financially to the channel, I would definitely recommend you check out my Patreon page. I upload all the content there early. We do live streams, giveaways. I do polls over there. They're the ones that chose what the next gun that I'm reviewing is going to be. So if that's something that interests you, definitely check out my Patreon page. Again, it makes an enormous difference. Now, if you can't support me on Patreon, I totally get it. I wouldn't be able to either if it wasn't for Patreon. About a third of what I receive from Patreon goes to me supporting other creators on Patreon for what that's worth. So I totally get it. If you can't, at least share this video with someone who you think might be interested in a gun like this, and we'll call it even. But anyway, with all that said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching. The gun is really cold. See, that's one thing about polymer frame guns that I think doesn't get talked about enough. The grips don't get anywhere near as cold as this thing is.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Oh, boy.
All over the place. There it is. That worked. Weird.